God morgon och välkomna till Aktiespararnas aktiedag. Mitt namn är Ulf Boberg och jag leder frågestunden efter företagets presentation. Nästa bolag vi ska lyssna till är Brighter med vd Henrik Norström. Brighter utvecklar en analysator för diabetes typ 1 och även nu andra produkter vad jag förstår. Välkommen.
Tack så mycket. Thank you everyone for joining us today. There are many who have logged in. Over 300, I believe, are online right now, and I'm really happy about that. And just wanted to show you the first picture here. The Brighter Group, I think many of you have previously seen Brighter as a single product company. But Brighter today is a group. It consists of 4 brand names, and we are a mission on to improve the global well-being and introducing innovation with a human touch. So the first real product that we are in the market right now is the Actis diabetes management as a service, a groundbreaking diabetes management solution to improve everyday life for people with diabetes. Type 1, as Ulf mentioned, but also type 2. So that's an important group for us as well. And it enables a more proactive approach to healthcare and easing the burden of the healthcare system. Then we have Nectarine Health, applying IoT and deep learning to assist senior living and independent living. So that's an important aspect also, looking at a higher quality of life and an increased peace of mind for the next of kin. And then we have Camagno, offering a complete solution for smooth transition to digital home care. Their platform provides a cohesive interface that allows caregivers to tailor the digital ecosystem in the home. And then we have Pioneers, our social community for initially young type 1 diabetics in Sweden between 13 and 30, but the intention of scaling that social community on a global scale for all diabetics and also chronic disease patients. And then we have an investment in Acumbo, a digital healthcare provider focusing specifically on chronic diseases and the metabolic syndrome, and starting out with the hypertension. And that is the beginning of the trajectory on that travel for a global expansion. They've had a huge success since their wider launch earlier this year before the pandemic, with over 13,000 patients from the beginning. Tackling diabetes is a challenge. It's one of the major public challenges today. It's huge, growing, with 425 million people today and increasing to 700 million over the next 20 years. So it's really a really substantial problem. The issue is to stick to the plan. It is a challenge to follow your doctor's recommendation and treatment guidelines. And caregivers don't have access to real-life patient monitoring to be able to support them. And this is what we want to accomplish. The lack of adherence generates huge costs. 90% of the life cycle cost of a diabetes patient is the fact that they're not adhering to their basic treatment recommendation. And this is, of course, a huge strain on the already strained healthcare systems. Coming to Actis, diabetes management as a service, it provides a digiphysical support aimed at helping people with diabetes adhere to care guidelines and achieve treatment goals. The service can also bring greater peace of mind to next of kin and help to reduce the burden on the healthcare systems around the world. The Actis device is delivered as part of a subscription service. The service includes global connectivity, mobile companion applications, different levels of data sharing, continuous replenishment of needed consumables, and enables individualized coaching to optimize and improve treatment over time. In short, we make it easier to treat yourself the correct way, while also creating an opportunity for health providers to give the correct and needed advice in every situation. Sorry. The concept that we've developed is an introduction of a whole new data-driven approach to chronic disease management, initially diabetes. The concept of which Actis is based upon is something we call the benefit loop, the heart of Brighter, a self-improving treatment loop driven by increased access to data, real-world analysis, healthcare access, and most importantly, personalized feedback to drive effective motivation and help the individual stay on track in their treatment recommendations. Always with user privacy in mind and the user in control, Brighter's solution link the physical collection of people's daily health and treatment data with our platform. This data can be shared with family members, physicians, and other parties who need to stay up to date with the condition of someone in their care, so that quick adjustments to treatment plans can be made. Over time, we believe that our services can support major health improvements and cost reductions in society. As you see here on this slide, we've accomplished quite substantial milestones over the past 2 years. We started off the year with an award for Rising Star by SweCare, and then we received our ISO certificate for the quality management system 13485, followed in September by the CE certificate, or the CE mark, as most people know the certificate as, for the Actis device. Not only one, but actually 2 Medical Device Directive MDD and IVDD in vitro diagnostic directives. Shortly after that, we acquired Camanio Care, or Camanio AB, which now is called, focusing on elderly care and the Smart Care platform. And in November, we invested a small share, 13%, in Acumbo, which we also will develop the diabetes doctor together with. And then in January, we raised 192 million SEK, very successful capital acquisition, soon thereafter followed by the acquisition of Nectarine, the company providing IoT and deep learning into assisted living. And soon thereafter, we launched the Actis Diabetes Management Service in the Swedish market, gained additional CE certificates for our new device, the Actis Mini, and in July also we signed a partnership with the provincial government of West Java in Indonesia, so that we can start the delivery of the first 100 Actis subscriptions while the market approval process is going. And that, in our opinion, working in parallel with governments together so that we can prepare for the commercialization while the market approval process is going is a huge success for us. If we look at the upcoming milestones that we have, it's important to keep in mind that we're optimizing our team within several areas, including sales and go-to-market, of course, data science, regulatory, R&D, and business development in Sweden, in the GCC, and Southeast Asia. We're advancing to work to establish new strategic and commercial partnership to support the commercialization. All the teams are vigorously pursuing sales, revenue first, on the markets in which our solutions are already available or are currently undergoing market approval processes. The Actis service B2C e-commerce on actis.com went live in Sweden in May. The primary objective of this launch is to gain valuable real-world user data and additional proof points from the live patients to support Brighter's ongoing commercialization efforts in other markets. We have both commercial and ambassador subscriptions in the Swedish market. Our initial target regions for the Actis service is the GCC, or the Gulf Cooperation Council countries, and Southeast Asia. We apply universal market approach with flexible pricing. Brighter targets to reduce the life cycle cost of diabetes by at least 20% over 5 years, and targets to serve at least 30% of the addressable markets, focusing primarily on countries that have high prevalence of diabetes. Brighter attracts customers of focus through B2G, or business to government, offtake and delivery agreements with government authorities, offtake and delivery agreements with distributors and mobile network operators in key markets, wholesale offtake agreements with clinical research organizations, B2C, business to consumer, active citizens who choose to subscribe to our service, B2B, business to business, data wholesale agreements, insurance companies, healthcare providers, foundations, and then monetizing big data, a marketplace for user-generated health data. We have a manufacturing partner, Sanmina, who has the capacity to deliver volume production and ramp up fast, not only out of the production facility in Sweden, but on a global scale. So how do we get to monetizing real-world evidence data? Driven by an increasing use of connected medical devices, sophisticated sensors, IoT technology, and digital care services, the healthcare data industry is growing at a rampant stage or rampant rate. The supply of medical information generated through our solution can, with user consent, a key issue in Brighter's offering, be leveraged by a wide range of organizations in order to reduce healthcare costs, enhance revenue streams, develop personalized medicine, and manage proactive patient care. We also have an IP portfolio that we see the opportunity in licensing deals. We currently have 27 granted patents and 38 patents pending on a global scale. If we look at R&D and new product launches, we have the Actis Mini. It's the second product, if you put it that way, to our portfolio. And we aim to continue to leverage our IP for additional services in the future. And then we are expanding into age tech and connected home care, as you've seen with Nectarine and Camanio, but also Acumbo, and all of it wrapped together also with our social community pioneers. Thank you, everyone, for listening today. Danke. Tack.
Tack, Henrik. Vill du att vi tar frågestunden på engelska, eller?
Som du vill. Let's do it in English. I think we have a lot of non-Swedish speakers listening to this.
So,
thank you.
No problem. Brighter has been around for a couple of years.
Yes.
You have promised to the market sales and the first order several times. You are in a regulatory world where you are not the boss. The regulatory agencies in the world are the bosses. But still, you have to communicate sales. So my question is, when will you increase sales? You had a sales today of 3 million Swedish crowns. You burn more than 100 for the first 6 months. When can the shareholders expect an increased sales to match the burn rate?
Well, first of all, thank you. I think you really get to the point in terms of that we are not the bosses. We unfortunately have to deal with regulatory situations that are out of our control. And it is a challenge, and I acknowledge that. I'm not only the CEO, but I'm also an investor myself, so I'm suffering with all of you in that perspective. But it is always a challenge because we always get indications of where, roughly speaking, we should be on the target. And I got a question from one of our shareholders at the annual general meeting asking if I was overly optimistic in the approach of the UAE, for example, and the regulatory process. And my answer was no. I could have been had I not known the exact experience that I had in 2018 and early 2019, when things went very fast and very smooth in that country. And therefore, I had no expectations that the registration or the market approval process would drag on to that perspective. So when I communicated to the market in December last year that I truly expected sales, it's because that's what I expected. And it is a challenge. And I know you have an experience behind yours, in your track record, in your career of similar situations. And it's really a challenge to go to the market and say, yes, we expect sales. And then comes a regulatory issue or whatever it is that delays that process. It's extremely frustrating.
Yeah, but still, as a CEO, you have to have an opinion. The shareholders expect that you have an opinion. Yes, there is a delay, but we would like to have a new prognosis. We would like to know, what is your opinion now? Will it take another 2 years or 3 years or 2 months? Or what is
it's not going to take another 2 years. It's not going to take another year. That I know.
Okay.
So I'm certain today, given the situation, given the multi-market approach. I mean, in December, we had just initiated the market approval process in additional countries. We had not launched in Sweden. So there's a substantial amount of actions that have occurred during this year. The success in West Java with having 100 subscriptions actually going live now in the fourth quarter in the pilot process, together in parallel with the ongoing market approval process, is for me a very clear sign that things are moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to give you if it's December 24th or December 24th for that matter. That's the day we're going to generate the big revenues. But definitely it's changing.
Yeah, and the registration that everyone is waiting for is the UAE market.
I understand that, but I think also the multi-market approach that we have today, we have ongoing market approval processes in the UAE. We have market approval processes in Saudi Arabia. We have ongoing discussions in Bahrain and Kuwait and Oman, as well as Qatar. And then we have Southeast Asia, where we have 4 countries that have already also in the market approval process. So which one comes out first? I don't know. Whichever one comes out first has the biggest chance to come forward. But it's good to have spread ourselves in that aspect in multi-markets.
And those countries are very independent. Normally people say that if you have an FDA approval, that will have a good influence in other countries. But Malaysia and Thailand, etc., they don't look that much on each other. They're very independent. So if you list all those other countries, are they running parallel? Can you see that some of them, Malaysia for example, will have an approval in 2 months or in 1 year? Or because I think this is important to have an understanding.
Yes, all of them have said roughly 6 to 12 months.
Okay.
So it's
from when?
From when we submitted the application.
When did you submit?
Late last year, beginning of this year, depending on the country.
Okay.
So there's a lot of preparation processes as well going on before you actually file the
Have you had any responses from them?
Yes, things are going quite well. I would say there's no major issues. And I think it's important to keep in mind that the ASEAN community, those 8 countries that consist of the ASEAN community, actually mirror the MDD regulation.
Yeah.
So this is actually one of the reasons in our market approach, which was one of the slides, that there's a regulatory fit. So the reason we did not do FDA first, but rather CE, is because we saw Southeast Asia, Middle East being regions which they accept the CE as the primary source. Now we're also prepared for the FDA, so I wouldn't see it as unreasonable that in some time in the future we'll also actually file an application in the US.
Yeah. In December, when you launched and very successfully had an emission that brought in 190, you said that you would use 100 million for production of Actis. Now you have burned, not made the part, but a substantial part of that money. How many Actis have you produced?
Well, I think, first of all, it's important to keep in mind that we don't necessarily put things on stock in that sense, right? We have prepayments for suppliers and so forth. So there are a substantial amount on our balance sheet right now that is prepared for the manufacturing. But it's also the fact that the process that we've had with the delays of the market approvals, obviously makes it necessary for us to reallocate certain of those funds that were targeted for the manufacturing to actually developing the business further. So there's no doubt there's been a reallocation of funds during that process. But we've invested quite a lot in prepayments for our manufacturing facility in terms of components and preparation for assembly.
Yeah. In the same new share emission, you had listed what you should use the money for. An acquisition was not listed. It was not
because
even
we
mentioned.
did not know.
I know, but still, reading the memorandum, shareholders expect you to at least follow part of it, and you probably have. Nectarine is a company that has increased the cost burden in your in your result and also in your balance sheet. When can we expect to have products coming from Nectarine and giving net sales to the Brighter Group?
Well, they're already generating minor sales in the Swedish market because they have an offering for the elderly care home facilities together actually with Camanio. So there is a minor sale, but there is a pivot also.
But still red figures.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're not cash flow positive.
No.
Absolutely not. But it's also important to see that the big shift in that sector is really to capture the customers before they reach the elderly homes. So the senior citizens that have wanting to stay at home longer are the key market, and that's where the volume is. So right now the investment that is being done is to reestablish a position so that we can offer it to the B2C market on a wider scale. So yes, we're still burning money, absolutely, in that sense. But I wouldn't say we're investing money, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hopefully, the investment will give some revenue and not only cost, because liquidity is an important thing here.
Yes, absolutely.
And again, if you looking at your result from the first 6 months, as I said, you had a burn of roughly 130 million since you have those development costs balanced. And you have around 233 in cash today, and then you have a loan that you can call for or be repaid.
We've invested money on a short-term basis. Yes.
So with that burn, you probably need more money before end of year.
Absolutely, we've already said that in the quarterly report.
Yeah,
we said
a little
that
bit hazy though. Could you?
Yeah. So basically, we have an equity-based funding structure in place so that we can fund our routine operations. Absolutely, and then we see that we will, as we mentioned before, focus on the institutional market, so that we can gain the additional investment for the large scale market introduction. I mean, as you've seen, we have a very ambitious plan to take 30% market share in those countries that we address. And those are 16 countries to date.
Yeah.
So it's quite ambitious.
Yeah.
Thank you so
much, Henrik.